Shana Tova. Shana Tova, everyone. Please try to find your seats. Welcome. I have a couple of housekeeping announcements. First, we ask that you please limit your cell phone use to emergencies. We have lots of folks running around with these greeter lanyards. If you have any questions or need any assistance, that's what we're here for. And lastly, if you'll look behind me on either side, we have emergency exits, as well as the door that you came in. Thank you. We'll start.
We are entering the holy space of Yom Kippur like we do for every Chag. We light a Yizkor candle. Yizkor means remembrance. We remember the people who have come before us, people upon whose shoulders we stand. We also remember our obligation on this Yom Kippur. Too many have died, especially in communities that we love, of COVID, of AIDS, of lack of proper priorities, putting life before base needs. And so if it is so moving to you, I invite you to either help light one of the candles or just come up and be here as the folks that we've honored to light the candles do so. We call this a ner nefesh, a ner neshama, a light of spirit. May those who've come before us inspire us to bring that spirit of holiness and healing into the world.
If you want to come up and light a memorial candle, you're welcome to. So join.
Zecher Tzadik Livracha, the memory of our righteous ones. We light our Yom Tov candles, our Yom Kippur candles, page 688. Yeah. The blessing is on 688. We'll light the candles and bring the light within and say the blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahalik ner shel Yom HaKippurim.
Amen. On page 690, you will see the blessing for the wearing of the talith, of the talit. This is the only evening during the year in which we put the talit on. We wear white, a rehearsal for the ultimate passage that we all take. If you have not found yourself a talit, we have them available. I invite you to join us. Blessing again, page 690. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehitate batzitzit. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who has made us holy with sacred obligations, including the obligation to wrap ourselves in the talit. In a moment, we're going to rise for Kol Nidre. That is presumably why you came. This year, our theme has been insist on hope. And I promise there won't be a quiz, but I went to the Brown Driver Briggs very, very detailed dictionary where you find lots and lots of information about Hebrew. You might know the word hope in Hebrew is tikva, right? Like hatikva, the Israeli national anthem. Comes from the root of kava, kuf, vav, and hey. A fascinating word, which I had never looked up until this moment. Well, this year. It turns out that this word that we have for hope originally is rooted in language of rope or cord, twist, and stretch. Originally, if we go back and look for this word, we find it in Syriac, an ancient language, which means to endure or remain or await. Arabic will come along later and add a different valence, to be strong. And so within hope, all of these things are literally wrapped up and twisted and hopefully can stretch and endure the tension. Let our prayers on this Kol Nidre be hopeful, a hope that endures, that is resilient, that is determined, that is flexible but strong, ready to begin again, no matter what twists and stretching this world has in store for us, renewing ourselves here this night. So we turn to page 691. By the authority of all who congregate above and all who congregate on earth, and with permission of the omnipresent one, by consent of this assembly, we accept into our midst whoever seeks to pray, whether righteous or unrighteous, some combination of both, all shall pray as one community.
Beshiva Shel Ma'ala Veshiva Shel Mata Al Da'at Makom Ve'al Da'at HaKahal Anu Matirin Lidbalel Im Avaryanin Beshiva Shel Ma'ala Veshiva Shel Mata Al Dat HaMakom Ve'al Dat HaKahal Anu Matirin Lidbalel Ma'avaryanim Beshiva Shel Ma'ala Veshiva Shel Mata Al Da'at HaMakom Ve'al Da'at HaKahal Anu Matirin Lidbalel Im Avaryanim.
Please rise. Yeah.
Kol Nidre Vesarei Vecharamei Vekonamei Vechiyei Vekinosei Shevot
Kol Nidre Vesarei Vidui Vecharamei Vekonamei Vekinosei Vechinuyei Dina Darna Nurish Tabana Nulacharimena Nudea Sar Nahal Ahal Nafshatamna Miyom Kippurim she'avar Nal Kippurim ze haba aleinu litov Zicharat navehon Gulhon yehon chiran Shevikin Shevitin Bitelin umevutalin Lasheririn Velakayamin Nidrena La Nidre Ve'esarana La Esare Ushuatana La Shavuot.
And there shall be atonement for the whole community of Israel and the immigrant dwelling in their midst. Indeed, for an entire people that has gone astray. Continue on 696.
ונסלח לכל עדת בני ישראל, ולגר הגר בתוכם, כי לכל העם בשגגה. ונסלח לכל עדת בני ישראל, ולגר הגר בתוכם, כי לכל העם בשגגה. ונסלח לכל עדת בני ישראל, ולגר הגר בתוכם, כי לכל העם בשגגה. צלח נא לעוון העם הזה, כי גודל חסדך וכאשר נסעת לעם הזה ממצרים ועד הנה ושם נאמר.
And the fount of mercy said, I grant forgiveness, as you have asked.
ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדבריך. ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדבריך. ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדבריך.
Do you hear that sound? That is the sound of being free. The sound of a year's worth of mistakes. Liberated. Just take a moment to breathe. Anytime there is something new, anytime we reach a milestone, like being free of mistakes, we have a blessing, Mashachianu. Thank you, God, for enlivening us, for standing us up to touch this moment. The last line on 696.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגענו לזמן הזה.
May be seated. It's been a complicated year and a complicated time. In so many ways, I am incredibly grateful to be welcoming our Executive Director, Greg Lawrence, to speak before you. Mostly symptom-free and coming up negative on those tests. It's the most important time to be negative. This is the time of COVID. So for all of the blessings that you offer to us, we are grateful. Please, Greg.
Thank you, Rabbi Mike. Good evening. My name is Greg Lawrence, and I'm privileged and honored to be the executive director of this unique, vibrant, creative, participatory, beloved Jewish community, congregation Beit Haverim. Welcome to each of you, members, friends and loved ones of members, longtime guests who call us home during high holidays, newish service attendees thinking about taking that next step into membership, and those of you checking us out for the very first time. Each and every one of you is welcome here. At this time last year, I was speaking to you from the lobby of our building up the street from here. It was empty, and I was looking at a large handful of you on the screen. While proud of that experience here today, as I stand in front of you all in person, I'm truly, truly moved. What a difference a year makes. Since then, CBH has revitalized its lay leadership infrastructure through the groundbreaking efforts of our Envisioning CBH initiative, resulting in new, thriving iterations of our ritual, adult Jewish ed, children's ed, and membership va'adim, green, gender diversity, fun, and care teams, conscious aging, caregiver support group, and more. We've welcomed 2 indispensable staff members, Abby and Enquinetta, had our first ever music festival right here in St. Bart's as we wished Gay Ann farewell on the next chapter of her career, while welcoming Will Robertson into the role of interim music director, and gone through a gauntlet of a settled rabbi search, resulting in the best possible scenario of having Rabbi Mike as our spiritual leader. As we set off into 5783, CBH has many exciting things in store. Coming up within the next month, we'll have our first ever Dor Hadash ritual to honor the Jewish journey of learning for our community school students. A congregation-wide meeting regarding our commitment to social justice and a gender diversity learning experience facilitated by our friends at Sojourn to ensure we remain at the forefront of gender diverse, inclusive synagogues in the United States. We will soon be launching our music director search task force, so be on the lookout for that. And we'll also shortly begin organizing and planning for our first congregational retreat since 2019, returning once again to the pristine North Georgia hills at Ramat Jerome the first weekend of March. It is such an exciting time to be a part of the CBH community. If you're not officially a member but are interested, please find or reach out to me or Abby, or simply head over to our website, cbhatlanta.org, to learn more and take the next steps. Lastly, and at the risk of stealing the other Greg's thunder in a few minutes, thank you to everyone here who has given to our high holiday appeal. We still have a ways to go to reach our ambitious goal here in 2022. We're one of the Atlanta area synagogues where tickets are not required for high holidays, but that only continues to work if each of us does our part and donates to our high holiday appeal, so that we may freely and easily continue to welcome every member of our community through open doors with hospitality. Hanachsat Orchim. To give, please donate to donate-to-cbh.org/2022. Again, donate-to-cbh.org/2022. Thank you again, and may each of you have a meaningful Yom Kippur with CBH. Gemar Chatima Tova.
Shivenu Hashivenu Adonai Melecha V'nashuva Kaddish, Kaddish, Yameinu Kedem. Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai Elecha.
Good evening. Shana Tova. In the parade of Gregs, I am the other Greg. Excuse me for a minute. It is wonderful to see all of you this evening. My name is Greg Beadall. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and I am here to deliver this evening's high holiday appeal. For the next 3 hours and 27 minutes, the doors to this room are locked and the bathrooms are closed. Now, how many of you will agree to double your pledge if I shorten this? There's one. There's another. Okay. We very much appreciate your attention and, of course, your support. Congregation Bet Chavarim, Congregation House of Friends, friends and family. How many of you have used the phrase chosen family to describe your very best and closest friends? That's us. The Congregation House of Chosen Family just doesn't roll off the tongue very well. So welcome to Congregation Bet Chavarim. You are now part of our chosen family. These aren't just words. This is a remarkably close and supportive community. Let me give you a few examples. I sing in the chorus. I love singing with these people. I wasn't able to sing with the chorus on Rosh Hashanah and had to watch from home via Zoom. The service was wonderful. The music beautiful, as always. It was hard not to be back there on our first High Holy Days after 3 long years. There are several reasons for not singing last week. The primary reason is that earlier this summer, our home was hit by lightning. We're out for a year and are just starting the rebuilding process. If you've never had to leave your home at midnight in a thunderstorm and watch your house burn, I don't recommend it. But let me be clear. This was my latest lesson in what's really important in life. What you all know is true. The house is stuffed. All of us are fine. My wife, my daughters. The lightning hit my daughter's room while she was asleep in it. The smoke woke her up, and she woke us up. And everyone is fine, including our pets, all of them. 3 dogs, 3 cats. Yes, our house is insane. The important things are fine. The rest is just stuff. So we've been a bit busy and distracted, and that has kept me away from rehearsals. But that hasn't kept my chorus family from being here for us. We have continuously gotten notes of support and thoughtfulness, offers of help, not just from the chorus, but from the entire CBH community. Our chosen family has been here for us. As family, we share the pride of accomplishments. Ariella, Shema, you both have been magnificent as you've stepped up to fill some pretty powerful shoes. Brad, you are the man and the mensch. I continue to be in awe of you, and I want to be you when I grow up. Will, there are no words for what you do, just none. All of you, what a treasure to hear your sound and feel your ruach. How many of you have the joy of saying, I get to be with my family every week and I love it? I thought so. Talking family, I must welcome Rabbi Mike and Anthony. Our disrupted summer has kept us from greeting you both properly and welcoming you into our home. As they say, next year in Decatur. But look at this. May you feel welcome in this house of chosen family for many years to come. We all know that family is a mixed blessing. Love often comes mixed with pain. This summer, we lost Rich Goodell, one of our beloved chorus family members, to a particularly awful cancer. A couple of years ago, Rich and Colleen moved back to New Jersey to be closer to their daughter and grandchild. They never lost touch, neither did we. When Rich became ill, it was one of our family's suffering. It still is. Rich will always be with us. Sharon and Mackenzie and Firm had the wonderful idea of adding a brick to our yahrzeit wall for Rich. We'll never forget him, nor Colleen, nor Emma. We stand at yahrzeit as a community, as a chosen family, in solidarity and support for each other. We bond as chosen family in great times as well. If you've never seen one of our Purim cabarets, you've missed one of the funniest, most sacrilegious services you've ever seen. Beltline parades, Shavuot, ice cream mountains, Pride this weekend. And of course, right here, high holiday services. We connect and support each other in person over Zoom during services. We support each other in between services. Has anyone ever talked to you about the CBH listserv? It is exactly like it sounds, an email exchange between everybody in the congregation who chooses to participate. It is through the CBH listserv that I learned, by way of Reuben, that the Atlanta Jewish Times had prematurely announced CBH's new facility in Davis, California. I promise you, not $1 from this appeal will go towards the completion of that facility. Through the listserv, I've gotten the names of plumbers, nutritionists, dentists, and roofers. I've been introduced to thought-provoking articles that I never would have found on my own, including those by CBH member authors. Rebecca Grapevine, I'm looking at you, wherever you are. I've participated in thoughtful exchanges, read Alan's beautiful poetry, learned about events that are meaningful and important, which have made a difference in my life and, with luck, in the world. Just today was a lovely exchange about the sukkah build. Thank you, Craig, Bill, Jean, Alan, Brian, and Joan. Elizabeth, I would have gone for the containers, but somebody got there ahead of me. In a lot of ways, CBH Listserv feels like getting on a call with the family, catching up, sharing stories, connecting, and all without the Jewish guilt. Speaking of guilt, now comes the ask. Every high holiday season, we love welcoming you, our fellow wandering Jews, into our home. We don't charge, it's a true invitation. We do ask for your help. It is not free to run these services, to build and maintain this house of friends and chosen family year-round. We ask for a donation of $360 per person. We welcome more if you can afford it. We know that not everyone is able to give $360. We gratefully accept anything you can afford. And we mean anything. Just as no person is insignificant, neither is their gift. I'll tell you from the bottom of my heart, whatever you can offer is valuable to CBH. To me, to you, it's just stuff. One last thing, I was originally supposed to give this appeal last week on Rosh Hashanah, but I couldn't be here for those services. I had COVID. It hurt. Not the COVID, but the not being here with you, my family, to start the holidays. Our first high holidays together in 3 years. I'm serious, that's the only word I can use. It hurt. And the joy of being here tonight, undescribable. So see, you came into our house. You're no longer a stranger. No, be a friend. Be part of our chosen family. And don't forget to give a little back to CBH, the green stuff. It won't hurt, I promise. After all, it's just stuff. That's some good stuff. Thank you for being here. Gemar Chatima Tova. May you be sealed for a good, happy, and healthy new year.
Your whole house can burn down. You still, Doctors Without Borders is still going to find you to send you a tote bag. So if you can give to Doctors Without Borders, you can give to this beautiful institution that I am so blessed to be a part of. We are going to turn to page 708. Rise and body your spirit. We're facing toward the east, toward Jerusalem, in recognition of that holy space and all of the people who live there. 708.
Barechu et Adonai Amevorach Baruch Adonai Amorach Leolam Vaed Baruch Adonai Amorach Leolam Vaed.
You may be seated.
Good Yontif. I'm back here. I'm Will Robertson, interim music director of the congregation Beit Haverim. In the spirit of Umavir Yom, we'd like to offer a song by my friend David Berkeley called This Be Dear to Me. David introduced this environmental anthem in concert a few years ago in a way that I think captures its spirit beautifully, and I'd like to use his words to introduce it tonight. David said, I wanted to see if I could figure out how to write a political love song. I wanted to write a song that could potentially try to unite people who don't agree with me on policy or a lot of things. And I was so frustrated and so frightened by so many things that are going on in the world, and I didn't want to write another angry song. So I started writing things that I love and things that I find beautiful. And I wrote a lot of words down in a book. I wrote like 20 or 30 verses, and then I chopped it pretty considerably. And I guess it's my hope in the end that what is left are things that I would find it hard for other people not to also love and care about. It might not be their top list, but at some level, in their best self, on their best days, they would remember that these things are dear to them too. And David continues, and so my hope is that maybe if we can relate on that level, then we can slowly get back up to the surface and we can start to make decisions about the surface of our world that protect those things and keep them dear. And I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but that's my hope. This be dear to me.
Raise Live your life with love and truth. This be dear to me. Look, there's love in all that's true. This be dear to me. Feel the love surrounding you. This be dear to me. Oh, this be dear to me. Yes, you are dear to me.
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו, לעולם ועד. יאי דה 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 דה, יאי דה 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 דה, יאי דה 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 דה, יאי דה 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 דה, יאי דה 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 דה. ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב הרבים.
I mentioned before that we are wearing our talitot, or talesim, in the evening, which is completely unusual. This is an opportunity to have the tzitzit in front of us, our reminders of holiness and sacred obligation. So we prepare for Shema. It's customary to bring the 4 tzitzit together. I'm going to invite you, if you're wearing one, to do the same. We think of the people of the world, the people in the world, the people who are dear to us, the people who have been angels and who have brought us love, maybe that we have forgotten about, maybe that we've taken for granted. And we take this opportunity as we bring these tzitzit together to bring all of that holiness and sweetness together. And even when we're feeling like no one in the world understands us, to hold those loose cords and strings together. Like we said, hope coming from strings. A reminder that there are angels who walk with us. Do give us tiny bits of love, and sometimes great big buckets full of it. We'll sing Ahavat Olam, yes, on page 712. That's going to go right into the Shema on 714. And because we are in the mindset of angels, we are going to sing out loud with the angels when we get to Baruch Shem, which we normally also say quietly. That will be an opportunity for us to sing out in honor of the angels of love who surround us with love. Ahava Olam, 712 into Shema on 714.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kivod Oto Le'olam V'Omed V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושינתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשתם לעוד על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בעיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך.
In a moment, we'll continue on page 722. The last paragraph of the Shema and the V'ahavta, which reminds us again of these strings, of these chords that hold us, that connect us. Even though they are loose and they don't seem so strong, you put them together and you get something powerful. This is an opportunity for us to actually make contact. There's an intimacy here where we kiss the tzitzit when we say the word tzitzit, It shows up 3 times in this paragraph in 722. If you don't have one, if you're willing to be near somebody who does, and you want to make a little community of taluses, feel free to just reach out and share your talus with somebody else. Bring it under the wings of Shekhinah, a canopy of peace. 722. Vayomer Adonai al Moshe lemor, daber el bnei Yisrael, v'marta alehem, v'asu lahem tzitzit, al kanfei videhem ledorotam, v'nadnu al tzitzit hakanaf b'til techelet, v'aya lachem letzitzit, uritem oto, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם, ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו, ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמן. In preparation for Michamocha, our liberation song, this is from Margaret Walker. It's called At the Lincoln Monument in Washington, August 28th, 1963. There they stand together, like Moses standing with Aaron, whose rod is in his hand. The old man Moses standing with his brother Aaron, old man with a dream he has lived to see come true. And that firebrand standing close at hand, stretching forth a rod across the land, leading his people forth with Aaron at his side in their marching out of Egypt to the Red Sea. With the east wind sweeping back a tide of the hosts of Pharaoh. We woke up one morning in Egypt, and the river ran red with blood. We woke up one morning in Egypt, and the houses of death were afraid. Now the leaders of the marchers stand and count the uncountable. Jacob's house has grown into a nation. The slaves break forth from bondage, and there are with them intermingled all the wives and the children of other nations, all the heathen marriages with the peoples of the land. They march out of Goshen. They overflow out of Egypt. The Red Sea cannot stop them. And here in the wilderness of a century of wandering, where shall we lead them if not to freedom? So the leaders of the marchers stand and catechize the people. Write this word upon your hearts, and mark this message on the doors of your houses. See that you do not forget how this day the Lord has set our faces toward freedom. Teach these words to your children, and see that they do not forget. Recite them in your going out and in your coming in, and speak of them in the silences of the night. Remember the covenant we have made together, here in the eyes of our liberator, here in the witnessing presence of our God and fellow man. Where shall we march, if not to freedom and to our promised land?
מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ידעי די 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 ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
We continue with Hashkivenu, page 730. Page 733. On this day, atonement shall be made for you, to make you clean from all your wrongdoings before the fount of mercy. You shall all be clean. We rise in body or spirit.
כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם לטהרכם מכל חטאותיכם לפני אדוני תתארו.
We remain standing. The Amida for our evening service on Yom Kippur, like all evenings, is said silently. It's going to be on pages 740 to 772. In it you will find our Vidui, the first Vidui of Yom Kippur, Vidui being confession. And there's a little custom we have of taking a fist and hitting our hearts as we say each one of the wrongs that we have done. Now, of course, there are some people that this is traditionally, it's a little bit of a punishment, right? You're hitting yourself a little bit, yeah? That might work for you. You want to feel a little bit of pain. Maybe that wakes you up. Other ways we can think of it, and we'll try out each of these through the holiday. Maybe it's a knock. Maybe it's a little knock on the door. Anybody home? Maybe you weren't sure if anybody still lived in there. And this will be an opportunity for you to remind yourself, oh, maybe somebody is in there. Hopefully we hear the knock. 740, Adonai Sefatativ Talk, that'll go again into our silent Amida, 740 to 772. Take as much time as you need, Hebrew or English. You'll let us know that you've gotten to the end of your Amida by being seated.
Adonai Sefatativ open my lips, beloved one, and let my mouth declare your praise.
you're still praying your Amida, I invite you to continue to do so. Continue on page 758, B'Sefer Chaim.
Sefer Chaim b'rachav shalom u'parnasa tova nizacher v'nikatev lefanecha אנחנו כל עמך בית ישראל לחיים טובים ושלום בספר חיים ברחב שלום ופרנסה טובה בספר חיים ברחב שלום ופרנסה טובה ניזכר וניכתב לפניך נענך בכל עמך בית ישראל לחיים טובים ושלום ברוך אתה אדוני עושה השלום
We take this time in our service to think of the people in our world who are in need of healing, whether that is physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual healing. I invite you, if you so desire, to close your eyes and maybe picture the person or the people who need your prayers right now. And whatever path to healing is available to them, whatever that might be, not always the same as cure, I invite you to see them on that journey, coming through the other side, more whole. I invite you, if you would like, to say the names of those folks out loud, knowing that, as always, your prayers matter. Of course, we invite you to put names in the chat if you are on Zoom. Mishaberach, our prayer for healing.
ושלום להודות להלל הרופא הנאמן והרחמן. מי ישב ונאמר
Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei HaCholim. Blessed are you, Adonai, healer of the sick. We say amen. Do you remember? The crowd was much larger than the police expected. The funeral procession snaked through the bustling downtown district, picking up mourners as it went. The death brought the community together in ways that nobody could have imagined. He was not the man some would have hoped for, but he was theirs, and they would mourn him however they saw fit, no matter what anyone said. The procession filed past a venerable old building, mostly like any other, albeit a little larger. The building had no beef with the mourners, their clothes, their way of speaking. The building never said their kids were too loud or too rowdy. The building never called them out for being lazy or shiftless or criminal. The building didn't seethe and heave with hate. The people inside the building? The people were another matter. They leaned out of their windows, out of their spaces, into the spaces and faces of the mourners. At first, it was just taunts that exploded out of that old building. But then metal screws and bolts. But then chemical-soaked rags. But then buckets of water at a funeral procession. And so the building would be entered, and so the people inside the building would be confronted with pointed words and pointed fingers and bolts and bricks. With whatever the building had vomited out of its windows, it would all be returned. The mourners made certain that an equilibrium of anger would be maintained. But then something upset that equilibrium. The crowd was, after all, much larger than the police expected. And so the action and the reaction brought a police action. Not against the people in the building. The police came for the mourners. They led not with moral authority or even common decency, but with stick and club. Blood boiled, blood was spilled. One paper reported men were flung down, women were dragged out by arms and shoulders and pushed headlong down the street. Inspector Adam Cross, supervising the police detail that day, instructed his men, club their brains out. Eyewitnesses reported police pursuing and attacking several people as they tried to escape, and at least 2 would claim that officers choked them in patrol cars. Another paper on the scene reported the words, "Lynch them, those animals, those dogs," could be heard from all sides. In the aftermath, after the mourners were arrested, after the mourners were booked, after the mourners were brought before the court, 93 in total, a judge lectured each defendant. He rebuked one, a wife and mother who lived at 420 Cherry Street. "You aren't allowed to riot in the street." And she, in turn, rebuked him right back. "We don't riot," she said to the judge. "But if all we did was weep at home, nobody would notice it. So we have to do something to help ourselves." You might assume that this is, perhaps, an account of Minneapolis in 2020, or Ferguson, Missouri, 2014, or Augusta in 1970. Good guesses. All wrong. It happened on the Lower East Side of New York in 1902. And the victims of hate were not, as we might imagine, African American. The funeral was for Rabbi Jacob Joseph, and the victims were Jews. Accounts vary, but there is one constant: fierce, furious police violence directed at Jews. For years, I have known that the police had no use for the Jews of the East Side, recalled one resident, but their dislike never was evidenced as brutally as in this riot. The Yiddish Daily Forward accused police of a bloodthirsty anti-Semitism and claimed that officers on the scene were beating up anybody who even looked Jewish. The Yiddish press regularly referred to the riot in the coming weeks as a police pogrom. Over the last decade, many Americans have found themselves confronting long-standing issues of racial bias in the criminal justice system. High-profile cases like the killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, the George Zimmerman acquittal in the Trayvon Martin case, police killings like those of Tamir Rice and Sandra Bland and George Floyd, all grab the headlines. The cases illustrate truths statisticians already knew. People of color constitute roughly 60% of our prison system. Available data shows that blacks are more likely than whites to be searched in traffic stops, though police more often find contraband in the cars of whites. Black and brown folks are disproportionately stopped and questioned, booked and tried and convicted, or beaten, or tortured, or shot. And as cell phone recordings and body cam footage become more and more common, white America has begun to imagine what it's like to be a targeted minority. For Jews, for most of our history, it hasn't taken much imagination. For centuries, Jews grew accustomed to looking over our shoulders, to watching what we said, to following orders, sensible or otherwise. From crusaders to Cossacks, from bank conspiracies to blood libels, Jews have known the reality of living with fear. Fear that our martyrs would be abducted or slaughtered. But today, as more and more people are aware in the United States, it's invariably people of color targeted by the authorities. It must be said at this point that there are people of deep integrity among America's law enforcement officers, some of whom are guarding this very building at this very moment. I'm proud of the relationships we have with the officers here. Interestingly, most of whom are black. Folks like Detective Lamb and Officer Poon, who I see on a regular basis. But in precincts nationwide, department culture and rules sometimes reinforce our worst instincts rather than our better angels. And in any case, we fool ourselves if we say this is only a police problem, or, for that matter, a MAGA problem, or a Fox News problem. It's easy for good liberals to blame other people, especially because that's easier than looking at ourselves. Police officers are more likely to kill unarmed black folks because our culture tells us that black people are dangerous. Jurors acquit those officers in part because they can't imagine being frightened enough of a black person to justify gunfire. Just as in Eastern Europe, Cossacks murdered Jews as part of a culture that demonized and vilified Jews. And this is where it gets hard for us sometimes as a Jewish community, because you might be thinking in your head, Cossacks? Rabbi, that was anti-Semitism. We were just Jews minding our own business. And part of you might even continue. Look, I don't want black kids killed either, but those communities do have some problems with criminal behavior. This is a day for Vidui, for confession. If the white folks in this room are honest with ourselves, we have to confess that part of us, maybe more than part of us, harbors these thoughts, even if we think it impolitic to say out loud. Must be something that they're doing. Some problem, some cultural issue, some communal pathology. We might think this, by the way, whether we were raised in the South or the North. When I was a kid, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, a New York legend, a Democratic senator for decades. Only when I got older did I learn that before he was elected senator, he authored a report entitled The Negro Family, The Case for National Action, known informally as the Moynihan Report. It was Daniel Moynihan. And rather than racism, the report blamed trouble in Black America on a, quote, tangle of pathology within the Black family, capable of perpetuating itself without assistance from the white world. That pathology, rather than structural racism, was, quote, the fundamental source of the weakness of the Negro community. It reminds me of the words of a New York City police commissioner, nothing if not an expert on crime and its causes. New York's top cop found it, quote, astounding that with 1,000,001 race living in New York, perhaps half the criminals should be of that race. Among the most expert of all the street thieves, the commissioner asserted, are their boys under 16 who are being brought up to lives of crime. Family pathology led children to similar crime rates as adult offenders. Quote, 40% of the boys and 27% of those arraigned in the children's court being of that race. Important data, to be sure. Except the words weren't spoken by the current New York police commissioner. They were spoken by Commissioner Theodore A. Bingham, not in 2022, but in 1908. And the race he was talking about was Hebrews. Bingham warned that, quote, Hebrew boys are burglars, firebugs, pickpockets, and highway robbers when they have the courage. Some folks mocked white Americans marching with African Americans in Ferguson, chanting in unison, hands up, don't shoot. Some cringed a little bit when they saw white Americans donning hoodies and claiming in solidarity with the Martin family, I am Trayvon. But make no mistake, for generations it was Jews who were stopped and frisked. For much of our history, Jewish men and boys were Tamir Rice and George Floyd and Elijah McClain. We were Trayvon. If anyone could identify with young men magically deemed pathologically criminal for no other reason save their ethnicity, it would be Jews. If anyone could identify with anxiety about how their children would be treated by the ruling authorities in the streets of their cities, it would be Jews. If any parent could imagine what it would be like to have an unarmed child stalked and, God forbid, killed, a born suspect, it would be a Jewish parent. It would be white Jews who would remember, who would stand shoulder to shoulder with African Americans, united in a shared history as despised and targeted ethnic minorities. The reality, however, is not so simple. There's a joke my dad told me when I was a kid. Ready for a joke? Maybe a little levity. Yeah. Two Jews, both Yiddish speakers, meet for the first time. Introductions are made, and it turns out one of the Jews is named Sean Ferguson. Sean Ferguson, the first Jew asks. Wie kommt der Yid zu Sean Ferguson? It's like this, the second Jew says. My name was Moshka Rabinowitz. But to escape the Tsar's army, the more things change. To escape the Tsar's army, my papa told me to use a fake name, Yankel Katzenstein. That's not the punchline. I practiced it over and over. Yankel Katzenstein, Yankel Katzenstein, Yankel Katzenstein. And so I sail off to America, and suddenly there I am, standing in line at Ellis Island, and getting more and more nervous all the time. And when it's finally my turn, I'm so flustered. I can't remember my new name. The immigration officer asks me what it is, and I can't think of it. Finally, I stammer, Oi, hab schon vergessen. If you're not laughing, in Yiddish, hab schon vergessen means I've already forgotten. The man looks at me, stamps my paper, and says, Welcome to America, Sean Ferguson. And damn it, if that's not a funny joke. Until we ask ourselves, have we also already forgotten? The existential fear of Jews from Isaac to Moshka, from Mount Moriah to Ellis Island. Did we forget? From Fargessen to Sean Ferguson to Ferguson, Missouri, was it easier to forget? In the Unatana Tokef, we say to God, Tiskor, Kol, Hanishkachot, you remember everything we've forgotten. On this day when we cry, Zochreinu, remember us, who maintains the memory of the Lower East Side funeral riot of 1902? Or Commissioner Bingham's Jew-hating rant, published in a national journal? On this day when we read about the scapegoat sent into the wilderness, bearing the sins of a people, have we forgotten our history as genetic scapegoats? How could that be? Anthropologist Karen Brodkin, author of a book whose title kind of says it all, How Jews Became White Folks and What That Says About Race in America, writes that the GI Bill and FHA and VA mortgages were forms of affirmative action that allowed male Jews and other Euro-American men to become professionals, technicians, salesmen, and managers in a growing economy. Meanwhile, the very same GI Bill blocked upwards of 1 million black veterans from the same pathway to wealth. Instead, Brodkin continues, the US government, quote, offered the black community the cement boots of segregation, redlining, urban renewal, and discrimination. Most Jews were happy to accept the benefits offered by a grateful nation, same as any other white GIs. But did that conceal something we'd rather not discuss? That in the post-war era, the Ted Binghams of the world were willing to allow white Jews to assimilate into whiteness, and we were more than happy to take that deal. Entering a doorway to wealth, education, and opportunity, a doorway emblazoned whites only. The brilliant social critic and historian Irving Howe, perhaps more blunt. So long as native hatreds were taken out primarily on blacks, they were less likely to be taken out on Jews. Howe continues, if Jews have been the great obsession of Christianity, blacks have been the great obsession of Americans. At this season of confession, it's time to confess, maybe we've been just fine with that arrangement. Maybe we've been content to have ethnic amnesia. As long as those memories of the knock in the night begin to fade, so long as those of us with light-skinned kids are not afraid for them to interact with law enforcement, maybe we can sleep a little easier at night. But of course, parents of black children don't sleep so soundly. The days of American police clubbing Jewish mourners in the streets are gone. White Jews get to be white. It's a deal we made to join white America, trading our weirdness for whiteness. But that whiteness entices us to forget our tradition of defying Pharaoh, of walking with the poor and the sick, the widow and the orphan, the immigrant and the outsider. Forget all that. Whiteness serenades us. Just blend in. But in doing so, we forget where we've been and who we are. And you might be surprised, or maybe angry, that I'm not talking more about anti-Semitism in this sermon, especially since it's statistically on the rise, especially since the 2016 election. Those who march in the street chanting, "Jews will not replace us," recall the memory of those who attacked the Rabbi Joseph funeral and who did worse in Europe. They're terrifying, and we are foolish to ignore them, more so since the fatal attacks on synagogues in Poway and Pittsburgh. At the same time, the Department of Homeland Security is providing funding to protect synagogues like ours. Amazing CBH volunteers, Sherry Cornett and Ellen Mazer, are currently working with Greg to hopefully secure a Homeland Security grant, and I pray that we can share some good news about that in the coming weeks and months. Meanwhile, the current presidential administration recently appointed an ambassador-level head of the newly formed Office to Monitor and Combat Anti-Semitism. Now Atlanta's own Deborah Lipstadt. Depending on your politics, you might feel this development speaks to the integrity of the people involved. Surely it also speaks to our power. Simply put, Jews have more power than we did in 1902. And thank God for that. Elected officials, the ADL, Jewish federations, all quickly mobilized to fight Jew hatred when it rears its ugly head. We should not be ashamed of having power to get that response. But we should also acknowledge that the increase in Jewish power correlates with Jewish assimilation into whiteness. That whiteness helping to ensure our outrage will be heard and not ignored. When white Jews are attacked, we call the authorities. But when black folks are attacked, sometimes the perpetrators are the authorities. I've been writing and teaching about this funeral, this Rabbi Joseph funeral, and the riot that came after it for 8 years now. And it has been really telling what's happened in this country in those 8 years. Incidents of extrajudicial violence against black folks come to light. The criminal justice system comes under scrutiny. Finally, after George Floyd's murder, may his memory be for a blessing, it looked like we reached a turning point. It looked like this country would finally face its past and present. But the moment faded. The US government that created an office to monitor and combat anti-Semitism somehow didn't get around to inaugurating an office to monitor and combat anti-black racism. And the backlash, well, you know about the backlash. White parents outraged that their children might feel bad about American history, even if inconveniently that history happens to be true. After some real gains and real accomplishments in the area of racial equity, President Biden seems to be publicly backing away from the issue, spooked by the cynical anti-CRT crowd and chasing that coveted white working class voter. After all, I don't have to tell a lot of you, there is an election coming up. As far as I know, and please tell me if I'm wrong, none of us here are running for office. We're not accountable to poll numbers. On Yom Kippur, we remember that we're accountable to something greater. We are accountable to emes, to the truth. The truth that while Jews fly to Poland and Germany to pay homage to our Jewish dead, it is this country that has inscribed a book of death filled with black names, pogroms, blood libels, ghettos, all American, all here. Was that lunch counter where grandmother was denied service? Was that oak a hanging tree? Is that the bridge where John Lewis was beaten? The vestibule where Amida was murdered? Was that the playground where Tamir was shot? For white Jews, the land of refuge has become a land of opportunity. And for African Americans, it's a land of strange fruit and chalk outlines where the crime scene is sometimes roped off by the killer. On this day, when all we've forgotten is remembered, our texts and our history demand that we remember. Because when we forget our history, we forget who we are. And when Jews forget, we run the risk of becoming not just bystanders in Pharaoh's Egypt, but God forbid, his accomplices. We of all people should know better. But do we? How is it that the black pastor of this church that we are in right now, Reverend Angela Shepherd, could tell me while sitting in her office that when a Black Lives Matter sign was posted in front of the church, she got voicemails from neighbors, Jewish neighbors, complaining about the sign, not a political platform, just the words, Black Lives Matter, claiming the sign was anti-Semitic. Haben wir schon vergessen? Have we already forgotten? The question still stands. When we hear of a young black kid who dies in police custody, do we see a thug, a shoplifter, a dead ender? Or do we remember the pogroms, Jewish mothers weeping for their children? And when we see black folks marching in rage and anguish, do we see an unruly mob? Or do we remember the Jews marching through the Lower East Side, clubbed by nightsticks in 1902? And if we remember, what are we going to do about it? The Torah reading tomorrow will be from the book of Leviticus. It's a weird old story of two goats. One sacrificed to God, one sent into the wilderness to carry away our sins. The goat sent to die in the wilderness is designated Lazazel. In English, it's the scapegoat. And we remember that for so many generations, it was Jews banished to the wilderness, confined to suffer, marked for death. We were the scapegoat. That insecurity hasn't left the Jewish soul. How could it? But after centuries of being the scapegoat, we look around to see, we look around here. We've survived. We've thrived. We are the living, embodied hope of our ancestors. Tonight we can say, we refuse to hoard that hope for ourselves. On this night, as the sun sits over Atlanta, as Cup Foods in Minneapolis locks up for the night, as the stars come out in Ferguson, the Jewish people, you and I, can hold out the hope of the liberated and say, no more scapegoats. No more. We can ask God, Zochreinu, remember us for life. Remember everyone for life. Help us remember who we were, who we are. A people of countless martyrs who fiercely safeguards life. A people overlooked who refuses to look away. A people steeped in suffering who refuses to tolerate suffering. A people tormented by injustice who pursues justice. Do you remember? share the holy business of our community.
Sure, Rabbi. Welcome. My name is Marcial, and I am a member of CBH as well as a member of the board. We are thrilled to host so many friends both in person as well as on Zoom as we observe Yom Kippur 5783. We extend our heartfelt thanks to St. Bart's clergy, staff, and members for hosting us at our annual High Holidays home. We can't thank you enough for how accommodating you've been and continue to be. Thank you, Rabbi Mike, for leading his first High Holidays with us here at CBH. Thank you to our late cantors, the CBS chorus, strings, and all who contributed to the musical experience here tonight. A special thank you to our interim music director, Mr. Will Robertson, who brought it all together for these High Holidays. CBH has 7 professionally produced albums, and they're all available on CD, Spotify, and YouTube. We also want to thank John Taylor and Richard Wells for running sound in the sanctuary as well as on Zoom. Thank you to the entirety of the CBH staff, including our facility security, and our child care teams. Thank you to all the volunteers that graciously gave us their time to make our services and ONEGs go so smoothly. A very special thanks, I'm not spanking you, Terry. A very special thanks to Terry Edgel and Effie Baton, who helped coordinate the honorees. Now, at the risk of mentioning food, of course they give me this job, we still need more food for tomorrow. Actually, what we really need are bagels. Could you imagine not having bagels? So, if you haven't signed up, please either sign up to bring them or just bring them tomorrow. And you can find the link at cbh.org. Thank you to our flower sponsors for these high holidays. To the Golson Gross Solomon families in memory of Ben and Howard Gross and Anita Golson, and to the Levin Smith family in memory of their parents, Elaine and Harold Levin and Gerda Smith. You're invited to rejoin us tomorrow for Yom Kippur Day services. They start at 10 a.m. If you haven't yet registered, please make sure to bring your ID so you can register on site. The Zoom link will be the same tonight as it is tomorrow. For those of you with kids, we have a specially crafted, musically driven Yom Kippur service tomorrow led by Reuben Holler. All children and their beloved adults are welcome. Check the schedule in your booklet for times for the different age groups. On that note, there's still spots to register children in the renowned, innovative CBH Community School, which meets Sunday mornings in Decatur. For more info on that, visit cbhschool.org. So we are hosting a food and clothing drive through tomorrow. You can drop off your items directly at the Toco Hills Community Alliance. It's in the back of the parking lot. It's where the tent is, so it's right back there behind it. Coming up this month is Pride Shabbat this Friday in Piedmont Park. Actually, Rabbi, you're speaking there, right? Don't miss it. 6:30, Piedmont Park. Sukkot, Simchat Torah, a social justice class with Rabbi Mike, and a gender diversity learning experience. Learn more in your High Holiday booklet and on our website, cbhatlanta.org. Please return your prayer book on your way out through the way you came in. Please leave all your unused handouts on your seat. Filled out donation cards can be dropped off in the marked baskets in the hallway and in the ONEG. So may a good sealing to each and every one of you. If you're fasting, have an EV fast. Leila Tov, and good night.
Continue on page 781. We long for transformation as we cast our voices upward on the wings of the day. Words pile on words, creating a ladder, ascending to the heart of prayer. 782.
Yahweh tachanuneinu mi'erev haba shabbatenu miboker ve'eraerinunenu ad harev Yahweh koleinu mi'erev haba tzidkatenu boker viera epidionenu adarev yaleinu yeinu mi'erev yavam slichatenu mi boker viera enakatenu adarev yalemenu seinu למענו מבוקר ויראה חיפורנו עד הערב.
May refuge rise at the evening hour, and may our cleansing come forth with the dawn. May we plead for grace throughout the day. May our memory rise at evening hour, and may confession come forth with the dawn. May our glory ring out through the day. May urgent prayer rise at evening hour, and may rejoicing come forth with the dawn. And may our plea be heard throughout the day. Turn to page 800, the 13 attributes of a compassionate and loving God, as we rise in body or spirit.
And John, if you could turn the orange mic on. Thank you. Adonai, Adonai, God loving and gracious, patient, abundant in kindness and truth, may you forgive our sins and our wrongdoing. May you claim us as your own.
Salachta lavonenu, uchatatenu, unchaltanu. We stay standing. Turn to page 820 for our out loud Vidui, our confession. Again, if you want to put your hand or your fist on your heart, this could be a little bit of maybe a rubbing, maybe a healing, a comforting, maybe again a little knock to see if we can wake ourselves up. 820.
Nashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu dofi, ay 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 Evinu, Shanu, Zadnu, Chamasnu, Tafanu Shaker, ay ay ay
Sarnu mitzvotecha, mishpatecha hatovim, v'lo shavalanu. We have abandoned the right path that has not benefited us. We have left justice and mercy for selfishness and cruelty, hoping in this way to make ourselves happy. We imagined that the more we control, the more happy we'll be. The more we bend others to our will, the more we will find joy. And we imagined wrongly. Continue with Al-Chet, page 827 and 828. We rise again in body or spirit. Al-Chet shekatanu lefanecha, for the wrong we have done before you in the closing of the heart. Al-Chet shekatanu lefanecha, for the wrong we have done before you without knowing what we do. Al-Chet shekatanu lefanecha, for the wrong we have done before you, whether open or concealed. Al-Chet shekatanu lefanecha, and for the wrong we have done before you, knowingly and by deceit. In the middle of 827, please join me in the English. For the wrong we have done before you, through the prompting of the heart. For the wrong that we have done before you, through the influence of others. For the wrong that we have done before you, whether by intention or mistake. and for the wrong that we have done before you by the hand of violence, for the wrong that we have done before you through our foolishness of speech, and for the wrong that we have done before you through an evil inclination. For all these sins, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, help us atone.
Ve'al kulam, Elo aslichot, selach lanu, mechal lanu, kapel lanu.
8:30. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, for the wrong we have done before you in the palming of a bribe. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, for the wrong we have done before you by expressions of contempt. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, for the wrong we have done before you through misuse of food or drink. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, for the wrong we have done before you by our avarice and greed. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, for the wrong we have done before you through offensive gaze. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, and the wrong we have done before you through a condescending glance.
Ve'al kulam, Elo aslichot, selach lanu, mechal lanu, kapel lanu.
On 8:31, please join me in the English. For the wrong we have done before you by our quickness to oppose, and for the wrong that we have done before you by deception of a friend, for the wrong that we have done before you by unwillingness to change, and for the wrong that we have done before you by our running to embrace an evil act, for the wrong that we have done before you by our groundless hatred, and for the wrong that we have done before you in the giving of false pledge.
Ve'al kulam, Elo aslichot, selach lanu, mechal lanu, kapel lanu.
May all your people, your inheritance, those who hunger for your good, those thirsty for your love, those who yearn for your redemption, recognize and know that to you alone, the fount of life, our God, belongs all mercy, all the forgiveness in the world. We remain standing. 12:02 is Aleinu, as the ark doors are open.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שנתן לנו תורת אמת, בחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Turn to page 1208, and where the gendered words are, we replace them with all people together. And then all that has divided us will merge, and then compassion will be wedded to power, and then softness will come to a world that is harsh and unkind, and then all people will be gentle, and then all people will be strong, and then no person will be subject to another's will, and then all will be rich and free and varied, and then the greed of some will give way to the needs of many, and then all will share equally in the earth's abundance, and then all will care for the sick and the weak and the old, and then all will nourish the young, and then all will cherish life's creatures, and then all will live in harmony with each other in the earth, and then everywhere will be called once again.
ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, נו שמו ושמו
You may be seated. Eshkol.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Elisa Bauer. My family and I are proud members of Congregation Bet Chavarim. Congregation Bet Chavarim is my family. Congregation Bet Chavarim is my community. And Congregation Bet Chavarim is the village that helped raise my triplet 18-year-olds. And CBH, Congregation Bet Chavarim, is where I met my amazing partner, the one and only Marcy Alt. I am so grateful for being a part of this loving, talented, accepting, and spiritual community. Please read with me the prayer for the end of hiding on the purple sheet. As LGBTQ Jews, we are aware of the loss of integrity we suffer due to pressures of the larger society. We often feel forced into a dishonest presentation of ourselves to ourselves and others. The LGBTQ individuals who feel they must pretend to be something that they are not, the Jews who feel they must be alienated from their tradition and community to win larger acceptance. Both are victims of the theft of identity, integrity, committed by the sexual, gender, identifying, or religious majority. Creator of the universe, we ask that our hiding draw to an end, that we no longer feel we have to pretend, to promise falsely, to renounce ourselves, and that our fullest creative expressions as Jews and lesbian, gay, transgender, bisexual, and queer people be among the blessings you bestow upon us. Amen.
Amen. Eshkol. As our yard-side candles remain lit, in a moment, we will rise like the flames to remember those upon whose shoulders we stand by saying Kaddish, the mourner's Kaddish. Again, you'll find it on page 1216. Is there anyone here who is remembering a recent death or a yard-side anniversary of a death? Who'd like to share those names out loud? If you did not share a name and you are a mourner, I invite you to rise as well. It's our custom when we get to the fourth line that we rise as a community, and if it's your custom, I invite you to do the same in memory of those who die every day of war, of hunger, of abuse, neglect, racism, hate, uncured disease, of insufficient health care, those killed al Kaddish Hashem for the sanctification of God's name amongst the Jewish people. Again, Kaddish Yatom, Mourner's Kaddish, 12:16. Yit Gadal, Yit Kadash, Shema Rabbi. Be'alma Divra Hirute, Be'amlich Malchute, B'chayechon, V'yomechon, B'chaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Bagala, Vizman Karib, V'imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevarach, Olam U'almei Almaya. V'yit bara, v'yishtabah, v'yit pa'ar, v'yit romam, v'yit naseh, v'yit hadar, v'yit aleh, v'yit halal, shemei dekudisha, barichu, le'ela u'le'ela, mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma, yimru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'yimru, amen. Zecher tzadik livracha, the memory of our righteous ones is always for a blessing. We say amen. You may be seated. Throughout the entire Yamim Noraim, these awesome days, we share a selection, we sing out loud a selection from Psalm 27. If you turn to page 1218, you will see Achat Sha'alti. One thing I ask of God, one thing that I'm pursuing is to dwell in the presence of God and see everywhere I look, experiencing it as God's palace.
נחת שאלתי מאת אדוני אותה אבקש. נחת שאלתי מאת אדוני אותה אבקש. שבתי בית אדוני כל ימי חיי, לחזות בנועם בנועם אדוני, ולבקר בחלום. לחזות בנועם בנועם אדוני, ולבקר בחלום.
Moment we're going to end with another amazing selection from the chorus, I got it. I keep wanting to say the other word that we're not saying. Yeah, chorus. And I have told them before this service, it's an amazing blessing just to hear them and feel them. This community is something else. It is really special. Everything is beautifully and powerfully intentional. So I've learned, which I love, there's a custom that after this service ends, whereas you might think that there'd be chit-chat, which happens often in other synagogues after the service ends, that this space remains a place of meditation and of prayer. And if you are interested in talking, that it's our custom to wait till you go outside the doors to do that talking. So I'm going to offer you one more reading, and then there'll be a song, and then may the power of this night transform us and move us into beauty. Erasing and writing, and erasing and writing. On Rosh Hashanah it is written, and on Yom Kippur it is sealed. And so God stayed up late on Yom Kippur and early into the morning as the Jews fasted and prayed and fasted, and some finally got it for once, and God noticed. And thus she was busy on Yom Kippur, erasing and writing and erasing and writing. Because for the Jews, Yom Kippur is a day not to work, but for God, it's a lot of work. Erasing and writing and erasing and writing. And this one guy left between afternoon and closing services and finally made the phone call. Even though it wasn't allowed in shul, he went around the corner, he turned the corner. So God picked up her eraser and pen and got busy erasing and writing and erasing and writing. Maimonides says God has no body, and sometimes it seems has nobody. And the book of Numbers says God is not a man, but what if God still, even now, numbers and sees and struggles, listening and lamenting, silently sweating each decision again and again, staying up all Yom Kippur, erasing and writing and erasing and writing until it is sealed.
Kaveh
לך אמר ליבי בקשו פניי קבל אדוני אל תתנני בנפש שרי קבל אדוני לך אמר ליבי בקשו פניי קבל אדוני חזק ויאמץ ליבך חזק ויאמץ ליבך חזק ויאמץ ליבך וקבל אדוני וקבל אל תתמני בנפש צרה קבל אדוני לך אמר ליבי בקשו פניי קבל אדוני אל תתמני בנפש צרה קבל אדוני לך אמר ליבי בקשו פניי